Hey, what's up everyone out there? Thanks so much for tuning in to another Addicted Fishing tutorial. Today we're out on the river, we're getting out some educational pieces for you addicts out there, and I thought, hey, why not talk about spinners? Because we've talked to spinners a lot, but we've never really talked about it in these kind of conditions.
Right, spinners are a really versatile tool in high water if you fish them correctly, using a lot of different styles and different colors. And that being said, we're gonna bring that to you guys right now.
Okay, so first off, let's talk about rod. You know, like in the higher water, are you using typically the same rod you're using in most conditions?
I'm gonna use the same rod, but I'm gonna beef up my presentation as far as weight and strength of that. So I'm gonna go with the 20-pound bumper. If I'm using a really clear water situation, I'm gonna use something a little lighter, but I'm gonna go 20, 25-pound bumper, something that I'm gonna be able to have a lot of pull with. If I do hit bottom and get snagged, you can get it back out. But really the thing is, you're gonna be attracting good fish and big fish, and a lot of times fresh fish in high water, so you want something with a good amount of backbone to hold on to those fish in this fast water.
Cool, so this is the Okuma Guy Select, this is the 9-footer.
This one's been beat up, it's been worn out, and it's been used well. But this is a 9-foot, 8 to 17-pound rod. This works really well in any scenario, really. It's my favorite spinner rod in a spinning reel that I've ever found so far since I've been kind of experimenting with a lot of different stuff. So 9-foot, 30-pound braid. That 30 pounds crucial, even more so in the high water because of that fast current. You want something that's going to cut through it, not a big 40, 50-pound test that's going to float, something that's going to get you down, fish those short buckets, and get your stuff back in without busting you off on a fish.
Sweet. So next, obviously, we're going to talk spinners, which I think is where we can get the most in depth when we're talking to guys out there. But like, I see you have like I carry like 4 spinners, and you have like
half the weight of my
40
bag,
spinners.
for sure.
So let's open these things up here and kind of talk about it. Let's start with this box first and kind of give people a run through of what you're using and what you're liking to use out here.
So these are definitely a little variation of a lot bigger spinners. This is kind of like my number 5 box, which is something that I'm going to go to in a situation like this, especially if I'm going to be using a number 5 spinner. You want something heavy. You want something flamboyant, and to start us right off, even more about the size of the spinner, it's about the presentation. So I open my box when I get to the river, I see my sky color, I see the water clarity, I open my box and it instantly will tell me what to use. The blue looks great right now, these chartreuse tips look great, even these pinks are really radiating in the light. So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna choose the one that's really just screaming at me. That's kind of how I explain it to people. Stick with the spinner and go with the presentation that is showing up the most in the conditions that you're on.
But I do see that you have a good diversity of all the color palettes in your box.
Different colored blades, different colored bodies. Really, again, I don't think the color matters as much until you get into this high water situation.
So what about brands? Who are you typically, I see there's some Blue Fox in there, there's some R&B in there.
There's R&B, Blue Fox. I like a lot of the different styles of R&B. The Blue Foxes are always the go-to. You know, I have the bullet body style here. I have one of the Northwest Extreme Outfitters, which is a bullet body. It's about a half-ounce spinner, which works really, really good in these kind of conditions.
Yeah, when you
and this is actually probably the one I'm gonna put on when I start fishing here. So having a good versatile size and range and fishing those in each different spot. I've explained it in some of our addicted lives that we've been through, that using a different spinner for each hole you go to is very crucial sometimes, and getting down to them. That's all that matters. You have to get in front of those fish. So using that heavy one, a half-ounce spinner, using a bullet body in another situation where you want to get down and really drag bottom, and then using a bell body when you want to fish a back eddy or behind a big rock and have it sit there and spin in the current for a long time and have a longer presentation in front of those fish.
So what about hooks? I see you got a big old thing of hooks in there. Most spinners come like stock with a treble hook.
Right.
And you're obviously switching to a Siwash. So talk about that a little bit.
And so even a lot of the Siwash that are on these are some of the Mahatsu Siwash, and I even cut them off. When I get the Blue Foxes or any of the other brands, a lot of times I'll go through with a pair of dikes and I'll just cut off every single hook and fill my box full of spinners without the hooks on them. One, it organizes a little bit better, but 2, it's because I'm gonna be adding these 2-aught must-add Siwash. And that's for a really good reason. I've switched to these, not just the selling point on these hooks, but the way they're built, the strength of them, and the shape of them, the way they have the outcropping, has upped my landing ratio.
What he's meaning there, guys, is if you were to look at this hook straight on, you can see it's like offset just a little bit to one side, and that is so important. You wouldn't think that little bit of adjustment is, but it is.
But getting rid of the treble hook and putting a Siwash on in general is gonna make it so that it's easier for you to fish. It's more effective. You're gonna be getting snagged less because you can get that spinner right on bottom and not have it grab the rocks every single time it touches bottom. In a situation like this, which I'll show you guys here in a minute, I'm gonna nearly be drift fishing the spinner.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get it down, I'm gonna make sure my blade's spinning, and then I'm gonna let it just drag through that strike zone. So having the Siwash on there is gonna allow you to get it down on the bottom like that, and those Mustad Siwash will just keep the fish on once you hook them.
Cool. So now, your other box, this is a little bit smaller, so you're going smaller with these, and I see there's some Gucci weird spinners going in. Talk about this one.
All right, so this one has a little bit more of a variation of the bullet body spinners like I was talking about. These things, like this one, 50-50 blade, different color. Of course, mine are a little beat up because I fish them so much. But having these bullet bodies makes you more effective in fishing in a lot of different scenarios when, again, you have that perfect tail out or that perfect steelhead run and you want your spinner dragging the bottom. They work great because they roll along the bottom. The Siwash hook keeps them from snagging up, and it keeps that presentation, again, right in those fish's face, because the way I think spinners work most off for all species, maybe other than some salmon, but for steelhead especially, is they don't have hands. When you throw the spinner right in front of your face, if you're here in the camera and I went like this, you'd probably swat at it. That's all they're doing. They don't have hands to swat at it, they have their mouth. So when you get that in there and you keep it in front of their face, there's been times we even fished together where I get the right presentation, I know it's in front of them, and I can almost call when they're gonna bite it. Because they can't help but not get smacked in the face with it, so they grab it.
Especially if you're watching them, Okay, so basically what you're saying, have a good variety of sizes. Have small ones, have bell bodies, have the, what's the other body called? Oh, you have torpedo and bell.
Yep. And then
those are the
bullet.
two main ones, right? Oh, and the bullet.
Yeah, and I like to stick with that. Don't go out and spend hundreds of dollars on your spinners, but have a good variation. You know, you always are gonna have your favorite. So go to the store, buy 3 of your favorite, and grab a couple other ones that are gonna allow you to key in on a certain condition when you hit the river, especially in this high water.
So now let's do that. Let's freaking take these guys to the riverbank with your setup and kind of show how you would approach like a high water scenario like
that. Okay, so what I'm gonna do first though, is today, because of this high water, I'm gonna go with this little bit different spinner. I'm gonna go with my Michael Jackson Northwest Extreme. Hold that for me, buddy. The way I'm gonna connect this, really simple. Just a normal fisherman's knot right to it. And one thing that we didn't cover yet, and that I think is very important, and even in the high water, is to not use a swivel. I like to keep a swivel out of my equation and tie my bumper to my 30-pound braid, my 20-pound bumper, and then tie my spinner right to my monofilament or my fluorocarbon bumper. And that is just to keep that blade engaged at all times. When you have a swivel on there, the swivel has to spin and the blade has to spin. So if you can cut that swivel out of the equation, the minute your blade hits the water, it starts spinning. And that's what I want. I want to be able to not have to reel, allow that current to make that blade spin and keep it in front of those fish again by almost drift fishing it. So I went with a heavy, like half-ounce spinner. I got my Siwash hook on there. This is a Michael Jackson style. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna turn around here and look at this river. What we have is a blown out river here, everybody, but the clarity's good. We should be out here fishing because we like fishing no matter what. And a lot of us out there only got the weekend, so we're gonna get out there even if the water is high. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna find the pocket water. That's what spinners originally are best used for, is fishing any kind of pocket. So what I mean by pocket is like what we have right ahead of us here. I have a large boulder right in the middle of the river, creating any kind of soft water seam in between me and that fast water current. So I'm gonna utilize and I'm gonna manipulate that boulder up ahead of me, getting my spinner down behind it where those fish can sit and keeping it there for as long as possible as it fishes down through the seam, like so. I'll bomb it up. I'm gonna keep my tip high, keeping that line up off the water. Immediately I start to feel that blade thump. And what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna wait for it to hit bottom, but I'm gonna fish it to the bottom. That's what I always try to preach when I'm spinner fishing, is don't let it sink until it's snagged. What you wanna do is you want it to hit the water, you wanna fish it down to the bottom, anticipating the bottom, and then once you find the bottom of the river, you use your rod tip by lifting up or down to adjust the depth of that spinner. And what I mean by that is when you lift your rod tip straight up in the air, it brings your spinner to the surface. When you point it straight down, it brings it down to the bottom, and you'll see that as I cast here. I'm gonna cast up again. I'm gonna keep my rod tip low, and watch how keeping it low allows that thing to sink. It's pulling down in that current seam, getting deeper and deeper, and then as soon as I feel my first thump, I'm gonna lift up. And I'm not gonna let the whole bit of line grab that fast water current because I want my spinner to stay right in that seam, almost like if you were fishing a bobber. And as it's hit that seam, that I can feel my blade still spinning, I'm obviously not even reeling. I can feel that thump with my blade by keeping my rod tip pointed straight at that spinner. And I'm just gonna walk the dog all the way through that strike zone, down into the bottom. And really all you're feeling for there is the fish picking it up. It'll be a big surprise to you the first few times you actually hook fish doing this and using these spinners in the high water because they slam it, they pick it up off the bottom almost as if they were biting a bead or something like that, and you'll reel tight and he'll just be there. Okay, so now we've moved on to a different form of a pocket. What we have here, again, is really, we're just looking for the only bit of soft water in the river. I preach it a lot. The path of least resistance are the only way these fish are going upriver. They're traveling a long ways. They don't want to expend too much energy before they have to spawn. So they're going to take the easiest routes up the river, and where we're standing now, that is it. So I want to target those. As I move downriver, I'm going to keep movement. I preach close, middle, far, 2 steps. We're going to use that same mentality in this situation, but we're going to be going close, middle, far, and then moving to the next pocket that we can find any bit of soft water, which is why this is so much fun. It's a very engaging and a very intuitive method that keeps you moving along the river and makes you utilize the most of your time and cover a lot of water. So this pocket across here, I'm gonna cast it. I'm gonna show you guys how you wanna use your rod tip to manipulate that spinner and try to get a presentation here under this tree. Okay, so the way I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna try to hit as close to the top of this seam as I can. You see that little break and that little back eddy swirl on the far side? I'm gonna hit right under this tree here, just like so. I'm gonna immediately close that bail, and I'm gonna let the spinner do all the work. I'm gonna let it sink, I'm gonna anticipate bottom, I can feel my blade stumping, but the most crucial part of this is that I'm keeping my line out of the fast current. If I was to drop my tip down, look how fast that whips through there. It never even gets a chance to get into the strike zone. But what I'm doing here is I'm using my rod tip and my longer rod, my 9-foot rod, to keep my line off of that fast current and keep my spinner in that fishy water, which is this far side. So I'm gonna go down about another 10 feet, covering that much more water. Again, rod tip up, reel against it till I feel that blade thumping, keeping my line high and up off the water, working it right through that seam, making sure I can feel my blade spinning. If not, I'm just gonna reel a crank or two, and I'm gonna let that swing right through there. Again, anticipating the bottom the whole time. And what's gonna help you on that is keeping that rod tip pointed straight at your presentation and following it through like you see me doing. And that's just gonna allow that vibration to transfer through your line and let you know that you're actually effectively fishing. I've hit the middle section of that cast. I'm gonna go down to the bottom end of it, try to get it to go right under this tree here. Oh, that was perfect. I'm gonna engage that spinner with a little thump. I'm gonna let it start swinging through there, keeping my tip high, waiting for bottom. I'm waiting for that fish to bite. And why above all these spinners are my very favorite thing to fish is just the grab. These fish are really mad at them. They don't like them being in their face, so they smack them. And when you have this kind of velocity coming down river, it creates quite the rodeo on the end of your rod tip. Okay, everybody, so there's some insight and a little bit of how-to on how to effectively fish these spinners and really how to choose your spinner on a day like this where you have really high water conditions.
Cool. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. We really appreciate every single one of you addicts out there that watches these tutorials. And make sure you guys are thumbs up in these things and sharing them out there if you want to see more of these, because the more you guys can help this channel grow, the more cool things like this we can do and the more days we can take off to keep filming this content for all you addicts out there. So again, we appreciate each and every one of you. We'll see you on the river.